Alright, this is probably one of the rarer times that I am going to do the challenge quest before doing the actual Lufenia. And the reason for that is because here I'm able to use a 0-3 Ingot Terra, and I really don't think I'm going to be able to use a 0-3 Ingot Terra for, well, anything else. Terra really suffers at 0-3. And in this case, Basch is also 0-3, and Vayne is 3-3 with no LD, so relatively budget run here. What I'm doing is, I guess I'll talk a bit. So, Indomitable with Basch in order to set up his buffs. Although, unfortunately, at 0-3, it takes a few more turns to fully set up his buffs to get all of his auras. I cast Wave right away with Terra, and the reason for that is to get the 5 stacks of Magicite above her, or whatever they call it in this game. Looks like Magicite to me. Because using her skills doesn't, her Meltdown or her Meteor skills doesn't actually add 5 stacks of Magicite, but Chaos Wave does. And yes, I have her C65, which I will use later in order to get stacks, but when you have Terra without any ingots, that's the fastest way to do it. And she's hitting decently hard here. We bring Basch for his auras, otherwise he's not really needed, and Vayne is fantastic against single target enemies because he can re-break them to delay them with both Force of Will and his EX. And Shadow here will get a lot of defense as Shadow hits the typical thresholds of 79% and 49%, or maybe it's Brave Reduction, I don't know. But regardless, we're not going to be hitting for 9s like how we are now. And so what I'm going to eventually do is once Shadow hits about 49%, I'm going to do my best to make sure he gets very few turns so I can keep Jack's debuff on him and Trey's debuff. Those will both add brave damage to everyone's attacks, particularly Terra's and Vayne's. They will be getting the most attacks off. So let's talk about budget Terra real quick, because I'm probably never going to use her at 0-3 again. Terra is terrible at 0-3. I mean, at least compared to how good she can get. So, typically what I look for in a budget character, if I'm going to keep their ingots low, is are they able to successfully function as a character without the ingots? So Eldnarsh is... here what I do is I use Vayne's C65 to break them, and then I use his EX to re-break them. This way they get knocked back 2 spaces instead of only 1 if I would have just gone straight into Vayne's EX. So, something good to do with re-break characters, where they're able to deal brave damage with a C65. Anyways, so yeah, Eldnarsh is able to fully function and do his job quite well at 0-3, for example. Aerith even, I still have Aerith at 1-3. I'll come back to Aerith though. She's a little different from Eldnarsh, but Terra, on the other hand, does not do very well at 0-3. Now I admit I wasn't actually playing this game when Terra first came out, but eventually I learned that she had arguably the worst EX in the whole game during the EX era, before EX Pluses were a thing. And so she really suffered from that. When EX Plus came out, she had a good EX Plus, but not good enough to really make her stand out above others who had both an amazing EX and EX Plus, for example. And now that she has a really good LD, she's able to stand out again. But for the sake of our conversation here, her EX was not made that much better by simply getting it realized or adding a book. All that really did was add a little bit of overflow and maybe splash. It didn't really do much. A lot of what Terra gained came from her ingots. So the first ingot takes her from HP plus to HP plus plus, for example, which takes it from like a 1 hit into a Brave Dump to 5 or 6 hits in a Brave Dump. Like that's pretty big. Her second ingot also does a lot for her. It allows her to start with stacks of Magicite or Magic, whatever it's called. And I'm not sure if it's that ingot that allows her EX to actually increase the number of Magicite or if it's the third ingot. But regardless, that's an important thing for her to have. And the third ingot also improves the EX from 3 hits to 8 hits. That's quite a nice improvement. That's more than double of an improvement. And I think it gives it better splash maybe and does some other stuff. But yeah, each one of her ingots are very powerful. I do not recommend running Terra at budget. And if you, or at least at ingot budget. And if you do want to, for whatever reason, then definitely do not use her below 1 ingot. I mean, unless you're just going to use her for these Chaos Challenge quests, then yeah, I suppose so. Speaking of the challenge quest, now that we've gotten that out of the way, Shadow has 1 stack left of Trey's debuff, and so I'm going to do my best to not allow Shadow to get any more turns so that debuff doesn't wear off. The debuff is pretty nice. It allows for a Brave damage increase on all Brave hits, so I want to keep that up there if I can, hence why I'm going Chaos Wave happy with Terra right now. And I also have Basch here at 0-3, and I think Basch is actually usable at 0-3. I used him in the past without even a realized EX because realizing his EX and giving him ingots really just has him do more damage. And his job is not necessarily to do damage. He has 2 jobs. 1, to provide big auras, and 2, to prevent your party from really taking damage. So that way everybody else can just focus on doing what they need to do, whether it's damage or whatever. And so I think Basch is usable. Oh, see, now we're adding Jack's debuff. Anyways, I think Basch is usable at 0-3, or whatever ingot budget you want to give him. I definitely would not use him without his LD, but Basch is certainly a lot less usable. It has to be a very specific fight that you're going to use Basch for if you're going to use him as a budget. And it has to be one of those fights where there's just a ton of AoE HP damage being dealt to the party. If it's not that kind of fight, Basch isn't really going to provide much, and I would use somebody else. He provides big auras, but when his turns do come up, he's not really going to do much. And his LD boards help with that a bit by giving him a 30% Brave damage increase. So I would definitely use Basch with his LD boards because his biggest problem is how little damage he does on his own turns. And there are some better aura bots than him nowadays, or just characters you take specifically for their auras. Paladin, Cecil, Sarah, others. But yeah, if it is one of those fights where they're doing a lot of HP damage to the whole party, or they're just constantly doing it enough, then Basch can definitely be justified even at 0-3. And his LD boards, by the way, also allowed his LD to battery more, and I don't think it healed before his LD boards. So yeah, LD boards are important. So here you can see Vayne is not hitting for 9s anymore, he's hitting for 5s due to Shadow's extreme Brave damage reduction. Terra has her LD and LD boards and her rework, so she'll hit harder than Vayne. But again, our goal is to not give Shadow any more turns in order to keep Trey's debuff up, which will allow Terra and Vayne to continue to hit harder than they would otherwise. And I don't know if you've been watching me use Vayne. Let's talk about Vayne real quick. So I don't think Vayne is going to be usable beyond challenge quests too much until he gets his LD. But one thing to keep in mind is Vayne, like others, on their free turns, their EX will not charge if you use a Brave Earn HP attack, but it will charge if you use one of his skills. So that's why whenever his skills are up, well, whenever he's getting his free turns, which is whenever he has a plus version of his skills, I try to use his skills, unless, of course, in this case, his EX is already fully charged. So we'll do a couple of free turns with those HP attacks, and then we will use his EX. You almost never want to use Vayne's EX when it's in its plus version, outside of very rare, unique situations. This would be a great time to Chaos Wave, which of course I do, but for two reasons. One, Shadow was about to get a turn, and two, Terra had less than 5 stacks of Magicite, so Chaos Wave took care of both of those. Anyways, you pretty much never use the plus version of Vayne's EX, and the reason for that is the regular version of Vayne's EX will fully charge his buff to 3 stacks, the buff that gives him his free turns, whereas the plus version of his EX will give him 0 of those stacks, and it literally, that's the only difference. Like, it doesn't do any more damage as a plus version, doesn't do anything else. All it does is the regular version gives him 3 stacks of his skill that allows him to get his free turns, which he needs 3 stacks of it to get the free turns, and the plus version of it gives him 0 stacks. So yeah, never use the plus version, instead just use some HP attacks or whatever to get it to the non-plus like that, and then use the plus version, and then use the non-plus version. Here we are summoning because I had no other way to delay Shadow. Was out of Chaos Waves, and Vayne didn't have a turn up to rebreak Shadow. Basch is hitting hard here because he is synergy, and because this is a Chaos level difficulty battle and not Lufenia. And of course we have Jack's debuff, Katana Wounds, and Trey's debuff, Firewall, on Shadow. It's a little unfortunate that Vayne's plus turns are being made redundant here by happening in the summon, but what you gonna do? Mockwave to get 2 stacks of his buff in order to get the free turns, and then Vayne will get the 3rd stack on his next turn. Indomitable Palisade, because why not? The battle's almost over, and it hits harder than any of Basch's other skills, and it batteries everybody by a nice amount, especially while still in the summon. That HP attack gave Vayne his 3rd stack, and so Vayne's going to get a couple of free turns on his next turn. We'll up Terra's Magicite stacks with her C65 in order to use the more powerful version of Meteor. We're running low on Meteors, but I don't care because Shadow's just about dead. And so the match is just about over. Shadow's nice and launchable, and we were able to give Shadow no more turn. Oh boy. Always put your phone in Do Not Disturb mode when recording, I guess, is the moral of that. Anyways, yeah, Shadow's not really gonna get any more turns here, I don't think. Yeah, no, this will re-break him. He might get 1 turn, but that's not a big deal. This match is clearly over. I like how between Terra and Vayne, only 37 turns are on the board. Because they both get so many free turns. It's kind of funny. Here I guess I'm debating if I should use the EX or just use another version of the Magic Meltdown. And the EX only hits 3 times, so I didn't think it was going to cap, so I did not use it. And Shadow technically took a turn there, but oh well, he's down to 2%. Doesn't matter. We'll use the C65 to get the attack up for everyone. Basch's LD in order to do as much damage as possible and batter everyone, and then Terra's going to finish it off with a riot, with a really low-level riot blade. Ironically. Alright, so that is the end of that, and I will be giving Terra some ingots. I haven't decided if I'm going to fully give her 3/3 or not, but definitely at least one. And oh, forgot to give Basch his new artifact passive. I'll eventually give him that too. And then here I will show that Terra is at 0 ingots. And then I will show that Basch is at 0 ingots. And that Vayne is at 3. Thank you very much for watching.